You know, when we first came to America, our world was so small. But he knew that our world was small. My parents always emphasized that we should broaden our horizons, expand our vista. So, you know, don't always think the world is so small. So even though we did not understand the larger world, we had confidence that there was a larger world out there and that we can get in it. So my parents taught us how to learn, and that is to watch. Watch people, listen to people, learn from everything around you, and to be alert, to be observant, and to always try to learn. And number two, my parents fostered within us a tremendous sense of curiosity. Why? Why this? Why that? And whenever they asked something, they always encouraged us to find the comprehensive answer, not just this one here, this little, tidbit here. They always thought comprehensively, broadly, so that we can study a situation and understand the full ramification of that particular situation. I think that is a wonderful gift. Yeah. So, it's like the story with the elephant. They encouraged, it's a story about the elephant. Someone says the elephant is a trunk, the elephant is a tail. My father always encouraged us to find out what the whole elephant looked like, not just one part of it. So this is wonderful preparation for going out into a strange new world and quickly being able to learn and grasp and enter. People may think that I've had a, easy life. There have been discrimination. I have been treated very, very badly, especially when I first went to Washington. I was a nobody. No connections, didn't know anybody. I volunteered for Ronald Reagan's campaign, and they wouldn't accept me because they didn't know me. So everybody will go through frustrations.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
And so the most important thing is not to get discouraged. And so I credit again my father with his stories about his childhood in China. When, my father is 他很勤快的，每个周末, he would go and repair everything around the house. Even though we can pay for somebody else, he did it himself because he found it very relaxing. So he would always have one daughter with him, carry the tool bag, carry the flashlight, be the apprentice, be the helper, run errands. And so during that time, when he's fixing the house, the daughter is helping him fix the house, he's telling us stories. He's telling stories about Zhong'ancheng, where he's from, about Nanjing, Shanghai, Jiading. That's what he's telling us. So he's telling us all these stories about his family's hardship, the history of 20th century China, the Sino-Japanese War, this World War II. So whenever I have a problem, I actually keep a little picture that I took of my grandfather, my father's village, when we first went back to China in 1979. It's a picture of his farm. My father came from a farming village of 10 families. There are chickens running around, there are pigs running around, there are thatched huts, houses. And I took that picture and I put it in my drawer. So when I was working my way up, and I would inevitably face difficulties or challenges or unfairness, I would just look at that picture and I would think, my father grew from there. My grandparents came from there. Their blood runs through me. I come from a race of 5,000 years. If they can survive and do well, surely I can as well. So I think every person should have something that they feel is very important to them, that inspires them. When things are down, which inevitably life will offer, you just regroup and kind of invigorate yourself. And it takes discipline, but the alternative is not very attractive. It may surprise people, but I never thought about myself, and I think that's good. My first thought was to make my parents proud because they worked so hard for the family. I wanted to make Chinese Americans Chinese proud because when I first came, the status of the Chinese was still not as high as it is today. And so I wanted to make sure that I did a good job in whatever I did so that I can blaze more opportunities and trails for people who would follow after me. And then thirdly, I just always just wanted to do a good job and to be a credit, to society. That was all. I don't think very much about the past. I try my best. I try to do the best I can to help people to carry out the mission. I think, if anything, one of the things that I'm most proud of is how many Asian Americans I have brought into the government, not specifically only in positions, but a greater understanding as to how the government worked. When I was a young girl, I never even met a secretary until I was 39 years old. And I remember visiting Elizabeth Dole when she was Secretary of Labor, and I came to her suite, and there were double doors. They're light brown, and they were closed. And I thought that her office was right behind that door. Then when I became Secretary of Labor, I found, oh no, those big closed doors were just the doors to the lobby of her suite. And then there are many, many offices behind there, and then comes the Secretary's office. And I remember how, intimidated I was. And so in my tenure, I have always had at least 2 Asian Americans on my staff. I cultivate them, and I take them everywhere. I want them to not feel that they do not belong. And then, they are Asian American liaison, so they reach out to the rest of the Asian American community. And then we promote our department's programs. We let the Asian American community know about the various support and help programs that we can offer, the training dollars, in all sorts of ways that we can help the Asian American community. So to summarize, I had the largest number of Asian American appointees of any department when I was in government. So I wanted Asian Americans to feel that they belonged in the highest rungs of the government, that we had every right to be there and we were qualified to govern. And if you don't have experience, you don't have that sense of confidence. So that was number one, getting as many Asian Americans into the government as I could, and to give them the opportunity at both the political, at the political level, so that they can feel confident for the future. And then secondly, we really publicized a lot of our programs to Asian Americans so they can understand, so they can take advantage of it. There's so much contracting going on. So in the Department of Labor, we had so many contracts that Asian American vendors were not bidding on because they didn't know how. Yeah. So we would have these opportunity summits, conferences. We cannot give the contracts to any particular person. That's against the law. But what we can do is show them the roadmap. How do you go about getting these government contracts? Here's the way, here's the process. These are the things you have to do. It's very difficult. And so then there were other things, union transparency. In 1959, a law was passed that required unions to file annual financial disclosure forms, that required union leaders to file any conflict of interest reports. So we found that a lot of the union members wanted these reports. So in response to their request, we began to enforce this law. And some of the union leaders did not like that. And so but then I also focused on training. Because of my international background, I knew that America's workforce had to be competitive in an international environment. It's not just within the United States anymore.